things. We have some buy-sell things. Indeed, we're doing a buy-sell. Hello, Hockey World. Those of you joining us in the chat room, thank you very much for joining us. It's a beautiful day. Tomorrow, well, for the next 24 to 48 hours following this, I will be frantically trying to finish my son's Halloween costume, which is something that we do every year. I build something. Last year, I don't know if you guys knew or not, I built the most incredible working R2-D2 unit.
Oh, I remember this.
It was absolutely, and I'll show video. I'll get some videos for it for Halloween this year. But he was inside. There was an iPad on it, and you could see him inside of it. It had it was motorized, a little motorized go-kart. He could drive the R2-D2, so he was driving around the neighborhood. He could see out of it through 3 iPads that were inside. Sorry, it's a little. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. That's our theory here. So we do it. We overdo everything, and there was lots of decorations on this iPad, on this R2-D2. The R2-D2 is literally probably 3 times bigger than the actual R2-D2. Why did it just get yellow all of a sudden? White balance me, camera. So this year what we decided to do is he wanted to be, is I collect vintage arcade machines from the 80s. I have like 20 of them. He wanted to be a Pac-Man machine. Not Pac-Man, but a Pac-Man machine, a working Pac-Man machine. All right. So we're doing it, and we're almost there. There's some things on my Instagram you can see, but this is I'll show you this last picture.
So instead of candy, he'll be accepting quarters.
No, he'll be accepting candy. This is where it's at right now. Okay, so let me show you this a little bit. So this is it. So you can see this is actually.
Wow.
Is
that an actual machine that you?
No, it's not. No, it's not at all. I'll show you what it was. I'll show you how I've gotten there so far.
What was a washing machine box?
Some interesting Halloween pictures that I have in here. Let me go back a little bit. Thankfully, my thing's not live. Yeah, so on my Instagram.
What kind of pictures do you have on your cell phone, Eklund?
Pictures on my cell phone. I have to say that I forgot that I had on there. All right, so let me show you this.
I saw that movie.
Yes,
there is a delete button on there.
All right, so this was the beginnings of it. Okay, so this gives you a little idea. This is in my basement here too. So this is what we did was the UVC piping, right? We got UVC piping, and I got this this old there's this thing called the iCade that you can Bluetooth connect to an iPad and so you can use a joystick with an iPad. So that was my way of making this working. I'm going to have an iPad on it with this joystick that works, right? So that was number one. So then we got a little bit further along. This is phase 2. You can see that this goes in here. So that's my kitchen. That's Buzz the dog in the background there. This is phase 2. Yes, now we're at phase 3, which I just showed you. And by the end of tomorrow, this will have to be done, of course. I had to make it light enough so he could carry it. It's actually so light. He's 8. He can actually pick the whole thing up. It doesn't look like it, but it is. And yeah, it's crazy. So what we're doing is he's having a slot in the front of it that's going to say, 1 play per candy, and you can slide the put a piece of candy in there, which collects into a little plastic Tupperware thing inside, and then you can get to play the arcade. So that's his idea. So this is all his idea.
I would have bet any money that that you would never be able to top the R2-D2, but this may actually do it. The R2-D2 is incredible.
This will not top the R2-D2. I have the greatest video from the R2-D2 thing that is just, I got to show you guys. I've been trying to put this on YouTube forever because it's just adorable. It's one of these things. So what I did is I have one of these cameras that film split screen. And it's a little portable camera. So it has a picture in both directions. So there's a picture facing out and a picture of him inside. So you can see the reaction of people and his reactions at the same time. And I put this on for Halloween for like 2 hours. So as he's riding along, and you just hear him like he's like starts singing dun 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 dun. He starts singing the Star Wars songs, and he's just cracking up. And then when one of his friends comes up, he's like, "Hey, Brendan, what's up?" It's absolutely awesome.
How about this, guys? This is one I saw this past week. Check this one out.
Wow.
No, so what is that?
It's an 18-wheel.
Named 18-wheeler, looks like.
Transformers.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's Transformers. Oh, that's so interesting.
Oh, wow.
It's a Transformer. This was his original idea, was to be a Transformer that actually could turn into a real truck. That is so funny. You got to send me that, Josh, somehow.
Wow.
That could be next year, only you'll make it even bigger and better.
Look
Yeah,
at
it's got to be motorized, and of course, it has to have real weapons. But besides
How cool is
that,
that?
That's pretty good. That is
That's
pretty.
Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
It's Optimus Prime.
I don't
Yeah.
know how I send that, Eck.
Before we start the show, I need to ask you,
Yes.
do you watch Person of Interest?
Mm.
Oh yeah. A little bit.
Yeah,
Friends this year.
when that show started out, it was, just a semi-simplistic plot of a computer that was developed to sort of find terrorists that is used to actually save people who a probability of a computer determines are in trouble. And now it's evolved to the point that we have an evil computer or a bad computer and a good computer, and the good computer is actually hiding from the bad computer, and the people that built the good computer are actually hiding, and they can't show their faces, and they've had to change identities. It's really a remarkable show, I have to say.
This is a show I have to start watching.
Yeah.
This is the thing. This is why they had to do that, because the original plot was actually really happening.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
They didn't know that at the time, but now they had to go. So they wanted to do something extreme science fiction. In the beginning was just straight out science, not fiction at all. So we were being monitored and everything was being checked out. So they didn't know that at the time. So
Well, I'm telling you right now, to me, and I definitely want to watch that show. I've been toying with starting to watch it, but the show that has got me hooked right now is The Blacklist. I think is incredible. James Spader he's like the best sort of bad good guy on television right now. I think that show is fantastic.
If I could recommend anything to you guys should check out How to Get Away with Murder. It's only 5 episodes in. I'm sure it's on demand. Great show.
Yeah, I saw it. I wasn't.
I have found it interesting that over the last decade, there's been several shows that really are about bad people that they make us like them. The Sopranos.
Yeah, it's true.
And the guy on Blacklist is a great Reddington.
Dexter's another one.
Dexter, they're really bad people. I mean, the main character that he's speaking about in Blacklist, I mean, he kills people at various times, and yet he's a very likable guy.
Yeah.
And James Spader is an incredible actor who brings multi-layers to this. I mean, he's a caring father, and he loves his ex-wife, and he's trying to protect her, and yet he thinks nothing. In the last episode, he just basically executed the guy was evil, but he executed.
He executed Peter Fonda, which was
just
particularly enjoyable.
And not because he made bad movies, but just because he.
And the series that just ended on Sunday, Boardwalk Empire. Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi, who was he was a gangster, and he was the main and very likable character on that show. So yeah.
I felt sorry for him, and I don't want to give away the ending in case people haven't seen it. But that's been a real character. And there was a guy named Enoch. It wasn't Thompson though. I can't remember what his name.
Yeah, it was Johnson or something like that.
Yeah. But he was sort of the boss of Atlantic City for many years, and but I did actually read about him, and he was not. He was not suspected of any murders or anything like that, like Nucky Thompson was.
That show I have not started yet. Boardwalk Empire. That's one of my DVDs when I'm older.
It's 5 seasons, so I mean, once you get hooked on it, but the thing is, Zach, this is not a show that you watch with the kids, obviously.
No, we don't. We don't watch many shows with the kids. We're all pissed off here that Carrie, Grant, and Tori were fired from MythBusters. That's just like a really disappointing moment for us, because we watch MythBusters every evening here.
And why were they fired?
They didn't say. They just wanted to go a different direction, and those guys were so friggin'. I mean, they were amazing, and it's really really bad.
I really expect that to happen on this podcast, and one day Mike and I will. You've decided to go in a different direction.
I'll call you after the show, Cav. We're gonna plot our.
That's right. Yeah, plot your non-violent overthrow.
It will probably be the day that we both ask for $1 million an episode.
Yeah, that'll be it. That would go a long way towards beginning that process. At least. Oh man. It's just hockey without the buzz. It is just hockey. Someone said to me, but that's fine. That's what I want. I just want hockey. I thought that was pretty fun. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just it's a catchphrase. That's all. I'm just trying to be gimmicky and catchy. Like, stop saying without the buzz, it's just hockey because we just want hockey. I'm like, I get it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Wednesday, October 29th.
Sure is.
Not Friday.
It's not Friday.
No.
It's not Friday at all. All right. I have 2 tickets for Fleetwood Mac tonight that I can't use. If anyone out there wants them. Philadelphia area. All right.
When we do the introductions, cut to Josh's camera.
Yes, I'll do that. I will introduce him. All right, ready? Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, 29th, 2014.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today.
I'm Josh Ritter.
And we did that poorly. But I'm sorry I spoke over you, Mike. And I'm Eklund, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. And you're watching, and there's Josh has returned from his special mission. I muted you, Josh. You can unmute yourself at any point that you'd wish to. We're here today to discuss with you the finest news in the world of hockey. We had 14 games last night, I think that 38 teams participated in or something like that. There was a lot of hockey going on last night. Everybody played, basically, and so we got to start, I think, with some of the games last night and some of the surprising things. And I want to start with before we get into what's going on and not to drink the water in Columbus. Let's start in Philly. We talked about this game a little bit, and I attended the Flyers Kings game where it was proven that the Flyers made a good trade because Braden Shen won the game in overtime after our discussion yesterday. He wins the game in overtime.
Played a great game as well. So.
Oh yeah, he did, and everybody. I mean, it was Mike Richards tied the game, 12 games. Sorry, Mike. I know there were only 12 games last night. Sorry, there aren't 38 teams participating. I know that as well. I'm smart enough to figure those things out.
Those games had 3 teams in them apparently, and so right. It was scoop. So.
That's my new idea. Triangular rinks, 3 nets like the air hockey game. Anyway, so yeah, to me. I mean, it was one of the best games I've attended this year. I attended with my family, so I got the thrill of hearing the guy behind me spew out curse words every 5 seconds to the delight of my 9-year-old and 13-year-old. And what are they? And when the referee makes a bad call, they're chanting lamp pole. I said lamp pole. They're calling him a lamp pole. Lamp pole, lamp pole. That was my quick thinking. But so it was fun. It's always so much fun to watch. I got tickets really close to Jonathan Quick where he was for 2 periods because I just love watching John. We never get to see Jonathan Quick in the press like that close, and how amazing he can be that close. How quick he really is, and how cat-like and how Hasek-like he is in so many ways on some of his moves. So it was a great game, and. And another surprising win. And the Flyers, like we talked about, this horrible schedule for October, they're going to get out of October at 500 because they're 1 game over 500 right now. And I said if they could get out at 500, I mean, they've got Tampa tomorrow night, and that could be disastrous. But you never know. I mean, they're in Tampa. LeCavier wants to come back for that game, I've heard, but it doesn't look like he will be back in time necessarily. But he's hoping to be back. But it was a great game. What did you watch, Mike?
Well, I was flipping around, watched a little bit of the Anaheim-Chicago game and most of the Buffalo-Toronto game, which was, let's just say this. Joffrey Lupul almost outshot the Sabres. Joffrey Lupul had 9 shots. The Buffalo Sabres had 10. That's the lowest amount of shots that the Maple Leafs have given up in their 98-year history. Ted Nolan and Josh Georges came out after.
Say that again. I mean, that is something. This is a storied franchise. That's not just to be blown over. The fact that this is the lowest shot total the Leafs have ever allowed, and it's not exactly the best defensive Leafs team in history. So let's just
no, and the funny thing was the game was pretty much in doubt until about a minute left to go in the second period when it was still 0-0. Michael Neuwirth really stood on his head. And then Tyler Bozak scored late in the first period, and then pretty much I think the Sabres were completely exhausted. But the Sabres, I mean, we've talked about them enough. I really want to talk about the Anaheim-Chicago game because John Gibson was fantastic last night in that game. It was a 0-0 game into the third period. Anaheim scored their goal on a Brent Seabrook error at the blue line, and Devontae Smith-Pelly scored on a breakaway. But Gibson made a save on Jonathan Taves that was 10 bell. I mean, it was fantastic. And, now Anderson's playing well. They got Gibson back. Again, and I think that Gibson was going to be really a star goaltender this year. And last night he looked it.
Well, this is the thing, Kevin, right, about Gibson that I keep saying is that he is a big game goalie. And maybe they don't know about Anderson, but Gibson has shown whenever he comes into big situations, he can perform.
Well, I couldn't agree more. That's the game that I think was the most important game last night, because the Chicago Blackhawks are a really good team. We're just not talking enough about Blackhawks. They're sort of lying in the weeds a little bit because they didn't make big changes. They brought in Brad Richards. That was it for them. They're but they're still a really good team. And then the element about the Ducks that I like is, before the season, I had predicted that even though it looked like it was a two-man rotation and that Anderson would get the first shot, I thought that Gibson would eventually steal the net. And then, of course, he started out the season with a really poor game against, I think, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mm-hmm. And then Anderson came on. He's been terrific. Anderson has been among the best goalies in the league, if not the best goalie in the league. Now Gibson looks like he's strong. If this Anaheim team, we knew they were going to be strong up front. The Kessler was the perfect complementary player to add to this team. It was exactly what they needed to compete against the Kings. He plays with a snarl. Even though he's not as big as, say, Ryan Getzlaf, he plays big. He's got a good history in the playoffs, and everybody talks about his vulnerability to injury. But, I always sort of discount that, because if you start, worrying about that, you're lost already. So I think you just can't worry about that. And if it happens, it happens. So we knew what kind of team they have. I think their defense, Lindholm has taken another step in his development. A player you like, Vatanen, has stepped up as well, and they were already pretty good. The Lovejoy injury is a big one, but it's not the season. It's going to be somewhere between 6 weeks and 2 months. But this team is really good. But my point is, if they're going to have two goalies, they're going to play that well. They may be setting themselves up as the team to beat. They have been very, very, very impressive. They lost that long winning streak, and now they start another one here by beating a team that I like a lot in the Chicago Blackhawks.
Another game of particular interest that I was watching off and on was the Minnesota-Boston game. It was on East, and Boston was leading 3-1 period, and very un-Bruins-like, the Wild came back and scored 3 goals in the third period and beat them at TD Garden 4-3. Josh passed on the message to me from the Bruins earlier in the morning that Torrey Krug broke a finger in that game, and he's out at least 2 to 3 weeks. So, the Bruins defense that's already without Boychuk because they traded him for cap reasons, and already out without Chara for 4 to 6 weeks, are now without Torrey Krug for another 2 to 3 weeks. You're talking about half the Providence Bruins defense playing for them right now.
It's a tough spot, and just to touch basically first off on the Chicago Anaheim game, and then that game as well, because I watched I watched the highlights. I watched the condensed version of a lot of the games last night, of course, because there were so many games and I was at a game. But I did watch most of the Chicago game just because you're right, Kevin. It's just to see teams play at that level, you get it, and then you look at how we've talked about before, how you have to have a backup goalie to go far, and then you look at Anaheim's backup goalie as a starting goalie on most teams, and who is, if they even have a backup that you can technically call a backup. So yeah, for regular season, it's hard to imagine anybody finishing ahead of the Ducks right now when you look at it. Playoffs, of course, are the playoffs, and that's when you just have to have one goalie who can play really well for you. But for the regular season, they have 2 right now. Oh my gosh, yeah, and their defense, I agree. Although they're still looking for tweaking. I mean, there's still rumors that they're out there trying to get a defenseman in there. So I don't, it's just hard to imagine that you would do anything to the Ducks right now if you were the Anaheim.
Well, the funny thing is that last year they actually had 4 goaltenders because
Yeah,
Hiller was there. They traded Fast played great early in the season, and they ended up trading him to Edmonton. But
yeah.
throughout the year, they had Hiller, they had Anderson, and they had Gibson down in the AHL, and then Gibson came up late in the season and then played in the playoffs. So they had 3 goaltenders who were playing well. So this is nothing new for the Ducks right now.
You got to start saying it's the system, but then when you watch those games, you watch the saves that Gibson made last night. They weren't, he made some real 10-bell saves, not system saves. I mean, these are actually legitimate, goalie saves that have nothing to do with the system they play. So, yeah, I have a tough time imagining they're going to go any less. And now, what I was impressed with the Wild last night is the Wild are now going through the Eastern, their first swing out east, and it's interesting to see how they're playing, against because I always think of the Wild as more of an Eastern Conference style team than a Western kind. So it's fun to see them play against the Bruins, and you realize, okay, this is a team that is very similar to the Bruins, but they have. And they have a similar kind of offense in some ways. That their offense comes from a few players. Krejci made an unbelievable pass on one of those goals last night, though. Oh my gosh, Krejci just is so freaking talented. But watching the Wild play and then rebounding after, of course, they fell apart for one period there, which is the only bad period they pretty much played all year against the Rangers. I think the Wild are for real. I mean, it's hard to imagine the Wild not being a playoff team right now, Kevin.
Oh, couldn't agree more. And I mean, I think they're for real as an offensive team too. In the beginning, you're debating to yourself, are they hot or are they going to be able to continue this? And there's no indication that they're going to fall off in terms of their ability to create offense. And it's really a dramatic change as well. I mean, suddenly they look like a Penguins team and with their ability to score goals. And and then they still have a reasonable, defense led by Ryan Suter. I mean, whenever you got Ryan Suter who can play half the game, that's, and that he is defensive minded and usually makes the right play. And then you're going to get the level of goaltending that they've got. Now, it's fallen off a little bit. And ultimately, I think the question for the Minnesota team will be, will their goaltending be good enough? I mean, Kemper certainly has proven that he can, have some good games, but he hasn't been around long enough to have a track.
Yeah, and teams are going to figure him out. That's the way with goalies. It's eventually they'll have, okay, this is his weakness, and then they'll shoot at that weakness every single shot until he figures out how to stop it. Those moments are coming for Kemper. Go ahead, Mike.
And the strange thing is with the Wild, the way at the pace that they're scoring, it's not coming from the people you would expect. I mean, Mikko Koivu has 1 point in 8 games. Thomas Vanek has 5 points, but they're all assists. He hasn't scored a goal yet. Whereas Jason Zucker is leading. Jason Zucker is a talented young player, but I don't think anybody would, in their right mind, would have picked Jason Zucker to be the leading goal scorer on the Minnesota Wild. So, I mean, I think eventually that'll sort of balance itself out because we know Koivu is an excellent center and we know Vanek is a goal scorer. But it's right now they're just getting production from those second and third lines, which I think down the road is a good signal for them because they really need that depth of scoring to be able to get through the Western Conference.
Oh, for sure. Vladimir Tarasenko went on a tear too. Here's another player that I really have always liked, and I felt like he was in the Hitch doghouse last year towards the end of the year, and it was a bad, you never know what's going on, but I think he's the most normally, I mean, what you would think of great talents. His offensive abilities are just crazy. He showed it last night with all of his goals. His goals were phenomenal last night. But last year definitely got into Hitch's doghouse, and his minutes dropped as the season went on. Put up a hat trick last night, and what I wonder, and then there was the big. I haven't heard the results yet of the injury to St. Louis's captain there, but it sounds like I mean it means more time for Tarasenko. You can see the Blues have been sort of treading water back and forth, and I don't know what Hitch talks about how they're not buying in, and then when you lose Backes is vitally important to Hitchcock, and anybody who was around Philadelphia when Primo went down with a concussion knows that was the end of Hitchcock when Primo went down. And Backes is the guy that sells the system. So I think St. Louis is a team to look. They're really right on the fence right now. They could go either way. Last night they looked great at times. But Tarasenko, it's hard to think of a player that to compare him to, Kevin. But I really like the kid.
I do too. I mean, I think we're going to wake up. It'll be a Tuesday morning, and he's going to be the best player on the St. Louis Blues. I mean, like I think we all know that he's going to be a star. He's going to be an elite level player, just because of his talent. And what'll happen probably is there'll be a couple or three injuries, and he's going to be given the the Ovechkin, Crosby, Datsuk, Zetterberg treatment, where his minutes are going to go up, and he's going to go crazy as he did last night. But if Backus is and I don't have any information on this either. I'm sure Josh can look on Twitter and get probably the latest. But if Backus is hurt, the West is so tough that I'm not even I don't think that a team even as deep as St. Louis can afford to lose a player of Backus's ilk. So
on top of losing Stasny as well. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say the Backus update, guys, won't come until this afternoon. That's according to the St. Louis Blues right now. So they're keeping hush on what exactly is the deal with his upper body injury.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Tarasenko, I've heard people compare him to Pavel Bure, and sometimes I don't like these comparisons because it puts expectations on young players that I don't think they can ever reach, because we know that Pavel Bure was, obviously he's a Hall of Famer, but was a ridiculous talent, and I think Tarasenko has a lot of talent, but I don't know if he's ever going to reach those heights. But if they can get themselves, and one of the big problems with the Blues over the years has been their ability to score, and if they have themselves a game-breaking scorer in Tarasenko, that really opens them up to the possibility of going to that next level. So we'll see how he does throughout the year.
I agree. So what is it? One guesses. Anybody have a guess? This picture was taken this morning.
That's the new arena in Las Vegas.
Nope.
Seattle?
Nope.
Quebec City.
This is Quebec.
Interesting.
An aerial view of the arena in Quebec City taken today, where they're going. So that's moving along.
Arena?
Yeah, that's moving along nicely. So I really want. I for one am very much into the return of the Nordiques, and let's hope that they were called the Nordiques. Did you ever anybody think about that? And let's hope that they wear those uniforms again, and that they don't do what the Winnipeg Jets did. I mean, we need the Nordiques back, with the Nordiques uniforms, because they were just phenomenal. I mean, I really hope that they go back to that. I just hope that this isn't like the Quebec Panthers or whatever. Not that's the wrong word to use. That was a slip, but no, I didn't mean it like that. I just hope that we actually have a Quebec Nordiques team again, and that's how I feel. That's my thought.
I think we will, because honestly, I don't think that building would have been built if there wasn't sort of a wink from the NHL that I mean, I can't say for certain, but I don't think that they would have made that kind of investment if they didn't think that an NHL team was a reasonable possibility.
Yeah, no, I agree. There were some good highlights from last night, though, and this is actually one of your boys here. I like this one. Let me see if I can get this going here, Mike. This was one of the nicest goals from last night. All right, so let me just share the screen. This was now, granted, he is playing against the Buffalo Sabres, but
I was gonna say if you are gonna show the Jake Gardner goal, I can give you some play-by-play on this one, because
so this is the Jake Gardner goal, and this was just darn impressive. I mean, and this is why you're looking for the patience that Gardner shows on this goal.
Yeah, Gardner held onto the puck, had time to make a bologna sandwich behind the net and then score. So,
Right.
I mean. Like I said, I mean, Buffalo's defense at that point was operating on fumes. They were exhausted. The final shots in that game were 37-10. The Leafs played a really good possession game. But the thing is that's interesting is that Ted Nolan made some comments. I think it was in between periods on the Buffalo broadcast. Just bemoaning the lack of effort for the team, and then Josh George's, who apparently may be regretting the decision not to go to Toronto, instead to go to Buffalo, it was making statements that the team wasn't stepping up. I mean, I don't think it's the case that this team is not stepping up. I just think this is a case of this team not having a lot of talent, and they can bemoan the fact that they're not, they've scored 11 goals in 10 games. There's just not a lot. There's not a lot of meat on the bone in Buffalo right now. So I think they're getting
almost none. And we're going to go to Josh for a second with the Ted Nolan comment of the night, which is always fun. It's a new segment we're going to do. Yeah, this is Tarasenko's
guys. I really believe he's the new Torts.
He is a new Tortorella. But this is Tarasenko's second goal. This pass is, first of all, pretty phenomenal. But this move was incredible. I mean, he literally, that's like an ankle-breaking move. One of those moves he literally accelerates around the player without moving his legs. Players who have the ability to do that, he's not moving his legs and he just accelerates right around them. So yeah, that's Tarasenko at his best. That's you got to give that kid some more playing time. But let's go back to the Ted Nolan quote of the night. Josh, let's call it Bleep Ted says.
Yeah, Mike was talking about 11 goals in 10 games. That's the lowest output for an NHL team since 1937. That's according to Yahoo Sports. I mean, that's pretty long ago, 1937. That's before my parents were even alive. Ted Nolan said, if we play the way we played last night, I'm sure we'll break more of those records.
Nice, Ted. Yes.
Now, granted, they've been shut out 4 of their last 6 games, but they did play, Western Conference powerhouses in Anaheim and in LA. I think they scored 1 goal in Anaheim. They got shut out by the Kings. They've been shut out by the powerhouse Maple Leafs. But again, I mean, they're playing an 18-year-old kid in Sam Reinhart. I think they're about to send him back to Kootenay in the Western Hockey League. They're probably going to bring up Mikhail Grigorenko from the minors, who I believe I know he was a first star in a game that I saw a couple weeks ago in the AHL. So he'll get an opportunity to show something. But I mean, really, it's about getting their young players that they have on that team to play, and the veterans to step up. But really, the veterans that they brought in were not as good as the veterans that left. Like I said, they brought in Brian Giunta, who you said during the playoffs last year looked like he was operating on fumes, and they brought him in as the team captain to replace Steve Ott, and Steve Ott is a better player than Brian Giunta.
Right, this is the issue. I mean, yeah, they definitely have not gone anywhere. And the last highlight of the day that I wanted to throw at everyone is Granlund's pass last night. If you guys saw this one, this was pretty crazy. This green kid. This is one talented chap. This is a Denny Savard spin pass here, and it just forget about it. This was really, I mean, Granlund. We saw it in we've seen it in the Olympics, we've seen it all over the place, but this kid can just play, flat out play. It's just, there's no question about it. So, and this is part of the offense you're talking about, Kevin. These are players that they found, I mean, you got to give Cliff Fletcher some serious props for this team right now.
There's no doubt. I mean, he's really put together, and one of the things I think is the key if you're moving forward is you have to address, and this is what Lou Lamoriello has been great at for years, is to be able to assess where your team is at and where it's going to be in a few months and fix the problems. It's one thing just to keep adding players, but Fletcher has really fixed the problem. Offense has been a problem, and now suddenly they went from being last year a very anemic offense to a very dynamic offense. And as Mike said, or it was you, I think, that said, they're getting it from secondary scorers as well. So, that's a sign that you've sort of figured it out when your secondary scoring is, put up. It's interesting, we were talking about Koivu. I had a conversation once, and I'd be curious to get everybody's take on this. There's sort of a feeling when you talk about Koivu that you have to say, he's an underrated player, because we all know what a terrific two-way player he is and what a high-character guy he is. He's the kind of guy you want on your team. He really helps out. But I kind of think at times when I think of Koivu, I think he's a little bit of an overrated player. And I say that because, he's such a solid, dependable player, but he is their guy. He's been their guy. He's
right.
Carries them, and I don't know that that's really what he does. And
That's a really. I think you're right. I like this because in terms of his abilities, and what people, and I think also because he's Saku Koivu's brother, I think the people expect certain things from him. He's a different kind of player than Saku completely. But then in terms of importance on Minnesota, yeah, I mean he's been as important as it gets, especially before they get Suter and Parise in there. He's the story, right? He's the.
Yeah, he is, but he's not, in my mind. He's not quite as offensive enough to be that flag carrier.
Right.
And I hate to almost say this because it sounds like I'm demeaning him as a player, and I'm not. I mean, I get he's like every team in the league would love to have him. He's a very important guy. I'm just saying that one of the reasons I think Minnesota is being successful offensively is they have a bunch of guys now that can score because he really wasn't good enough. Like he is not offensively. He's not even Eric Stahl or, he's not that type of player who can lift them up. He was incapable of doing that. And it's not his fault. I mean, and he's still a really good player.
He pales in comparison to, if you do a side-by-side comparison to other core players on other teams. But I think his underrated status, similar to when he was with Dallas, is the fact they're in markets that are really not covered that much. I mean, Louis Eriksson is a fine winger. Was a fine winger with Dallas, but Dallas didn't get a lot of exposure, so that was the reason. I think one of the reasons that fed into him being the most underrated player. And now Koivu, I think, has that sort of moniker as well. And again, Minnesota does not get a lot of coverage. They may start to get it now, but with Parise and with all the players that they have, but I think that was the reason why he's been considered underrated.
But I would venture to say that Louis Eriksson was more. This is as crazy as more people. Him being underrated, there seemed to be more hype on him than when he went to Boston. And in Boston, I think he's actually just what he is. And I don't think that no one's saying Louis Eriksson's underrated anymore.
No, in Boston, he's slotted as a third liner.
Third liner on the Boston Bruins, and some people say, well, if he was on a big team, well, no, if he was on a big team, he would be less appreciated because he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost the same point about Louis Eriksson you can make about Koivu. I mean, well, first of all, Koivu was a better all-around player than Louis Eriksson. First, that's different. I mean, he's at a higher level. But when Eriksson got traded to Boston, I remember talking to a GM. And about that trade, and I was saying, well, it's not like Dallas didn't give up anything. And his comment was, Louis Eriksson is not as good as everybody thinks he is. Like, on Dallas, he was, he had to score the goals, and he got the opportunities to score the goals. He goes to Boston, he's going to look a little more ordinary. Right. So I mean, you could, in some respects, I'm not sure that the opposite is not true. He wasn't really underrated. He could have been. Overrated as well. So.
He was overrated in his underratedness. He was the most underrated player in the league.
Yeah, no,
overhyped, underrated player in the world.
Yeah. So let me circle back here, and I hope everybody understands what I'm saying. Koivu is a terrific player, but I always felt, and I thought Mike actually said it better than I did when he said when you compare him to the other comparable players on the other teams. He didn't have and doesn't have the same ability to lift his team up offensively as a guy like Getzlaf can do, or a Sedin can do, or a Zetterberg or a Datsyuk can do. And I think in some respects, even though he's a terrific player and deserved to be the captain of Minnesota, until they've got other guys, he wasn't going to be enough.
Right, and he's not a highlight film reel either. He's just he does his job, and you won't see him on the NHL tonight. You won't see these beautiful Mikko Koivu goals all that often. But Josh, let's talk a little bit about Columbus because there's a team that is they got a few injuries.
Yeah. Oh yeah, quite a few. I mean, go down the list. I mean, that's a hell of a hockey team that's on the sidelines. You have Anisimov who suffered the I guess you could call it a concussion last night. In the game that they played, you have Wisniewski who hurt himself as well. Today was announced that Mark Letestu was out. You add that to Nathan Horton, Brandon Dubinsky, Ryan Murray just came back, so I can't say him. But you have Nick Foligno who suffered the big hit the other night. I'm trying to think. I know there's a couple others I'm leaving out. Boone Jenner.
Yeah.
who's got the broken hand, but they're saying he could be back soon. I mean, go down the list. I mean, they're hurting. Bobrovsky, I mean, let's not forget about their number one defender, who's also out for the next 2 weeks. I mean, this is a team. I watched the game last night against Ottawa, and you know what? For a team missing so many big, big names like star players, they still hung in there pretty good till the very end when Ottawa really ramped up the scoring. But you know what? I mean, this is a tough pill to swallow for this team after what they did last year in the playoffs. They wanted to come in this year and prove that that they could do it again and do it earlier than they did last year, winning that is. And right now they're having a hard time in the infirmary.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. Let's check out this is from the Columbus Dispatch. This is their cartoon for the day, showing various other injuries that are going on. With of course JD with a mustache mishaps out for 4 to 5 weeks, and they've got the Cannon has projectile dysfunction out indefinitely. Stinger, who is their mascot, is on Ebola 21-day quarantine. Yeah,
the point I would make though is that the one thing about injuries is they're really everybody gets their turn. Like last year, the Penguins lost 500-man games or close to it. The Red Wings we talked about before the show was being on. I mean, at one point I remember specifically they had 13 guys in their lineup who were from the AHL. Like they had crazy number of injuries as well. It's just the Blue Jackets' turn. And the one thing I am sort of curious, and I think this speaks to I think everybody feels bad about it because the Columbus Blue Jackets I think were adopted by the league last season with the effort they put out against the Penguins. Like I said this to Eck before, I don't remember a team that lost a series but came out of it better than the team that won. Like when that series was over, everybody said there's something wrong with this Penguins team. They had such a hard time. God, I love those Blue Jackets, man. They just worked hard every game. Like I don't remember a series like that. Everybody liked them. Now the reason I bring that up is, generally when you get the injuries, like one of the big themes in Detroit last season was, you just don't talk about the injuries. It just happens. And the Penguins were a big deal too. I wanted to do a story on it. You try to talk to Penguins about it, and they say, it is what it is. You just got to live through it. But the story about the Blue Jackets injury is a big story. It's because everybody loves the Blue Jackets, so they want to talk about how beat up they are.
That is so funny.
I mean, because it's true. I mean, last year you couldn't get anybody in Detroit to talk about all their injuries, or in Pittsburgh, and they had tons of injuries. But you can about the Blue Jackets, and it's because I think everybody was looking for them to be successful this season, and they feel bad. They feel bad that the Blue Jackets are all beat up.
Kevin, they won a lot of fans over last year too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And they're also they have an underdog quality to them. That it's just that everybody wants to root for them, and you want to root for them. That makes sense.
I think the only other team that got that kind of publicity or that kind of feel from losing a series, coincidentally, it was against the Penguins as well, which was 2 years ago, which was the Islanders. And after the Islanders lost in 6 games, a lot of people were thinking, okay, there's something wrong with the Penguins, because if it wasn't for Nabokov not playing well, everybody thought that the Islanders probably would have won that series.
I would agree with that. Yeah, no, that's right.
And the common denominator there is the Penguins again get screwed for winning a series. They go out there and win a series.
You get no credit if you have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin.
I would agree with what Mike said, although I will say this. I think everybody admired and appreciated what the Islanders did, but people loved the Blue Jackets. Like it was a romantic attachment to them.
Yeah, because no one hates the Blue Jackets. That's the thing. No one has like an inherent hatred of the Blue Jackets. They've been very much like a medium team for people. And they're even new to the conference. Like there's no real rivalries with the Blue Jackets. So that's why it's easy. It's hard. Since you don't really we hate the Islanders, so when the Islanders in Philadelphia, Islanders do well, you can't really pull for them because you already have a long-standing hatred of them. So yeah, I think that's it. So let's say a little bit of buy or sell here, and then we'll go to some quick news. Just have a couple little buy or sells. This is a little thing we started last week, which we like, where I will throw something out there, and everybody will give whether or not they are buying or selling it, and meaning that if they buy it, they're kind of in agreement with it, and if they're selling it, they're not in agreement with it, and that's more explanation than this probably should have had. Here we go. So we'll start with this. The Oilers are doing the right thing by keeping Draisaitl and not sending him back. He's gonna stay here after his 9-game stint. Kevin, buy or sell?
That's really a tough one. You know, I'm going to buy, even though I'm buying with reservations.
Okay.
I just think that this is a big kid, and the more games he can get in the NHL will make him better. And I've never really bought the idea that if things aren't going well and you're a rookie on that team, that it's bad for your development. I think it's better for his development to play against quality NHL players, providing they're planning to give him enough time. If they're planning to play him, 9 minutes, then they should have sent him back.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, I'm in the same category, a marginal buy. I mean, I'm a little hesitant here because I'm expecting the Oilers to get back to being the Oilers and losing more games than they've been winning. They won 4 games in a row, and if that kind of atmosphere, keeps going, then it's probably a good thing to keep Draisaitl around. And he's playing well, and but he's an 18-year-old, and he could be exposed if they start losing and exposed to something I don't think they want to expose to. But right now, the way they're playing, it should be okay, but things can change pretty quickly.
What do you think, Josh? Do you think you like this Draisaitl move?
I'd buy. I mean, why change something right now that's not broken? They've been playing really well the last few games. Why send them down? I mean, maybe. The chemistry's good right now. Why not hold on to him right now and see exactly what he's able to do?
Well, they're burning a year of his entry-level deal, which maybe is probably the only consideration. But.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, he looks like he's ready to play. It's not like he's a little boy playing with men.
I'm selling this one, and I'll tell you why. They're only doing this because he's a center. And that to me is the bottom line. And that's they're thinking about him. They're thinking about the team before the player. And we got into the discussion last night about the Flyers have Shane Gossabier up, right? And he's probably their most talented defenseman, including their defenseman on the NHL roster. I mean, he's got crazy talent, but he's not ready for the league. But he's better than anybody they have. So you sit back and you're like, they need to keep him in they really do need to give him time in the AHL. I talked to Russ Cohen about this for a long time because Russ has seen him a ton, right? And he says he's doing his normal things, but he's hesitating a lot on his moves, right? So he's saying the hesitations are, it shows he's not ready for the NHL, but the Flyers don't have anybody better. So this is so you're in the spot of, okay, you're rushing a guy. It's basically it's a win now. You got to win now. You're taking the team. That's why I'm saying if Draisaitl wasn't a center, they would be sending him back. So therefore, I'm selling. To me, okay. It's a team decision. All right, and Ryan Miller. This is buy or sell. Ryan Miller. If the All-Star game were tomorrow, you would put him on the Western Conference All-Star team. Mike?
I would sell. I like Frederik Andersen. I can probably come up with a couple other goaltenders who, not to say that Ryan Miller isn't having a good year, but I think I could find a few other goaltenders to put on the Western Conference team other than Ryan Miller.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'm selling too. The All-Star game, he's winning. He's only had one bad game, but there's too many guys. I mean, Hiller's played well. Anderson has played well.
Darcy Kemper.
Yeah, there are going to be guys that are going to have better numbers than him.
Josh?
Who are we talking about again right now? Sorry.
Ryan Miller. Would you put him in the All-Star team?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's played tremendously again last night. I mean, it seems like Willie Desjardins is pushing all the right buttons in Vancouver. I mean, Ryan Miller, I don't think I've seen him play this well in a long time. I mean, last year you could see when he was in Buffalo, he didn't look happy. He didn't look like he was enjoying himself. New change of scenery, closer to where his fiance. I don't think they're married yet. I think she's still a fiance, correct?
I'm not sure. I wasn't invited to their wedding. But
anyway, he's a lot closer now. I mean, Vancouver, Los Angeles, it's a closer plane ride. But it just seems like he's in a good mindset, and yeah, absolutely, I think he should be there.
All right, last one. The Edmonton Oilers have the current longest winning streak in the NHL. Let's throw this out there, okay? Last week we were dooming them to hell. Now they have the longest winning streak in the NHL at four consecutive wins. The Oilers are finally for real. Kevin, buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm going to sell. You know, they've actually been quite impressive. I've poked in and taken a look at their games, and they seem to have figured it out. And I think we expect them to be better. I still see them as improved. If they continue us, I would call them improved, but it won't be enough to make the playoffs. So therefore, I'm selling.
Mike?
Sell. I mean, I think they are making some progress. They have to stay healthy. Maybe their defense is getting a little better. They're getting great goaltending from Ben Scrivens right now, which I think is the main impetus for their current winning streak. But that goaltending has not been consistent over the last few years. And I've seen Scrivens, and I think he's a fine goaltender. I just don't know if he's a number one in the league, and I don't know if he can keep up this pace. So I think they'll be better than they were last year. I just don't think they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs. So I'll sell.
I'm buying this one. I think that of course I was on the Oilers, right? So I said the Oilers would finish third. So I'm saying that this is for real. I think they are going to finish third. I still think they're going to finish third, and I think this is. I'm watching them on the same. I've been poking in too, and they are starting to. What's happening is what I wanted to happen. Puyat is a factor. These guys that they brought in are factors beyond just and Hall is just crazy good. If you have Hall on your team, you should be a playoff team. I mean, he's just that good to me. That's where it's at. So.
Can we do a buy sell on whether the Colorado Avalanche are not going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, we'll have to do that later.
Okay.
I have one more for you though. The Arizona Coyotes.
Take on it.
Josh, sorry. Yeah, what's yours?
I mean, I would sell right now up until the point when they do replace Dallas Eakins. I mean, let's not forget, guys, on the weekend the report that came out that that the Oilers were planning on bringing Mark Messier, and I don't know how much truth there was to that, bringing Messier in as a head coach in the report that was in the Toronto Sun. But, I mean, Eakins right now obviously is on borrowed time, and the chances are very good that once this winning streak does end, and, if they go on a bad tailspin again, he could very well see himself out the door. I'm not saying Mark Messier is going to be the head coach, but right now I'm selling until someone else comes in there because from all the speculation rumors that have come out the last couple of years that a lot of the players don't like Dallas. I'm not saying that is the case, but I just think maybe it is time once again for the Oilers to dump their coach.
Oh, boy. Finally, the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Coyotes should become sellers right now and should think of their season as lost without hope and should put some players on the market in hopes that because otherwise they're going to be stuck in no man's land forever. They got a good draft coming up, and they need one of those top guys. Kevin?
Oh boy, well I think I'm buying that just because I don't see them as a playoff team, but that's a little harsh and a little complicated because they've got to sell tickets as well, and they've got a new owner, so it's hard to boil that down that simplistically. But I think basically if I'm looking at it from, do I believe they have a chance to turn this around to make the playoffs, the answer is no. And I'm also buying the Arizona Cardinals as well. So
the Cardinals are a very good team. Mike?
I'm buying but the thing is, I don't that even if they do sell off players like Shane Doan and Keith Yandel, that they're going to be bad enough to catch teams like Carolina. Although Eric Stahl did come back yesterday. Buffalo we've already discussed a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't think they can be bad enough to get to that point. They're a very good defensive team. I don't think they're going to trade Mike Smith. That wouldn't be one of the guys that they would divest themselves of. So I think even in the West, where they're one of the weakest teams, I don't think that they're going to be able to get down low enough to get into that Eichel McDavid sweepstakes. So I mean I buy it, but I don't think they'll be successful to get that franchise player that they need.
Mike Smith is going down way too early on shots. Just watching all these games, he's going down, and there's a book now. Just wait till he goes. You can see players. Last night, if you watched last night's game, he hit every goal. Players are waiting. He goes down, puts it over top of him. Mike Smith has serious problems. Josh?
Yeah, I've been disappointed with the Coyotes this year. I'm going to sell.
They're in a tough spot. They're in a tough spot. All right, real quick, Josh. News. We're out of time, but just give us a couple things, real quick.
All right, we should go to the infirmary once again here. In Calgary, Matt Stajan's knee injury is severe, likely ligament damage. Looks like he's going to be out for quite some time, and they're already hurting with Mason Raymond. I can't believe I just said that. Joe Colburn out. There's a couple other guys as well that.
Wait a second. Is this the Leafs injured report?
Yeah, right.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Former. Brian Burke later.
Claude Julien said it was an undisclosed tweak during practice for Brad Marchand.
Not true. He just disclosed it. Come on. You can't say it's an undisclosed tweak.
Yeah. Another injury for the Boston Bruins. He's hoping he can play tomorrow versus Buffalo to really make themselves feel good after destroying.
Everyone wants to play against Buffalo.
Exactly. But good news out of Boston, guys. Zdeno Chara was seen limping around through the locker room this afternoon. No crutches or brace on his left knee. Could he be thinking about returning earlier than everyone thought he could? Wouldn't that be a nice little boost for the Boston Bruins?
The image that goes through my head when you say that is like it's like a scene from like Jurassic Park. You know, like he's like hobbling through the locker rooms.
But guys, I think Rask will be disappointed because I kind of wanted to see how they play without him.
Yeah, I know.
Evander Kane on the ice this morning, not wearing a non-practice contact jersey. Another guy who could be not far from returning. How about in Philadelphia? Ray Emery getting the start again, apparently on Thursday for the Flyers against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Everyone talked about Mason being the number one guy, and right now Emery has been the better goaltender.
They play better in front of him, that's for sure. I mean that really is part of it. They are afraid in front. They play way better defensively in front of him than they do at Mason. Mason hasn't been the problem in his games. He just hasn't. They haven't scored for him, and they haven't played well in front of him. But he hasn't let up bad goals. But Emery's hot right now. You got to stay with him.
And finally, guys, Blackhawks captain, and this should have been on buy and sell. Blackhawks captain Jonathan Toews is seeking a new home 3 months after signing a new contract with the team. He's asking $2.25 million for his Lakeshore East condominium with outdoor hot tub. 39th floor condo features an upgraded kitchen and ample outdoor space, including a large terrace with hot tub. I mean, that's
there's nothing like a hot tub outdoors in January in Chicago. To get you stepping lively through the way. But we do. That's all the time we have for today, guys. We appreciate it. Enjoy the games tonight. We'll be back again tomorrow. It's Thursday, so we'll be joined by Mr. Ryan Gardner. Will be back with us, and it'll be Halloween Eve. So stay safe. Without the buzz, it is just hockey. I still stick by that stance. Good night.